this most superior portion of like the structures we've been talking about is the corpus callosum. So it's this huge arch right here. It's basically what separates the cerebellum from the other structures we're discussing. All right, now if we flip the page, we'll get to the fornix. The fornix is this tissue right here. So it kind of starts at the like halfway point on the corpus callosum and comes over here to join the top of the corpus callosum. It kind of makes that bottom barrier to the lateral ventricle. Right there. All right, next, the three structures that come next, the massa intermedia, anterior commissure, and posterior commissure, are all involved in communication, so I definitely recommend kind of memorizing these ones together because it'll make memorizing their job easier. And also they're all in a line, so it's just like tic-tac-toe right in a row. So we have one here, that's the anterior, right? Anterior side of the brain. It's the most superior anterior dot. Now the massa intermedia, it's the mass in the middle, just like the name says. It's the brown dot smack dab in the center of the brain. And then the posterior commissure is the, if you were to follow that line, the posterior one. And notice the posterior commissure and the anterior commissure look fairly similar in size and shape. That's going to be important because you have this funky gland up here that's going to get a different name, okay? So note that. This funky gland is the pineal gland. That's the next actually on our list. So you'll notice that there are three bumps or structures back here that may be easily confused. So starting at the top and working our way down, this is kind of a good order to memorize. We have the pineal gland, which is the most superficial, posterior commissure, which comes next. Then we have the superior colliculus and inferior colliculus. So really be careful about those four structures because it's very, very easy to get them confused or switch them. So just kind of heed that warning ahead of time. All right, next we have the thalamus. We're going to get back to our word structure in the middle of the brain. So this is the space where this is the third ventricle. But if we were to put a sticker here, that would actually be the thalamus. You can see in the models that there's kind of like a round, raised oval right in the center of the brain, kind of surrounding the massa intermedia, really. That's the thalamus. All right here. So you'll see that kind of raised line right there. Then this flatter surface here that's not raised, which is below the thalamus, is called the hypothalamus. Just remember that the hypothalamus is below the thalamus. All right, and just kind of to connect the dots, because it's kind of weird that we talk about the hypothalamus without talking about the pituitary gland. For anyone that's had any classes that deal with hormones at all, I'm sure you're aware of the fact that the hypothalamus is intimately involved in the function of the pituitary gland. So the hypothalamus, you can also remember it's here because that's where the infundibulum connects the pituitary gland to. So these three structures are all closely associated in this region. Okay, last few things to get to. The arbor vitae. The arbor vitae is essentially the white matter of the cerebellum. If we come down to the cerebellum, the white matter in this has actually been depicted in white, which makes it a little bit easier. And if you start here and we look at it like from this perspective, you can see it kind of looks like a tree. So if this was the ground right here, here would be the trunk, these would be the branches and leaves. So arbor vitae means tree of life. It's kind of an easy way to remember it. It actually just looks like a tree. Now, it's important for you to know white matter from gray matter. The majority of these structures are white matter. I'm not going to point out which ones are white matter, which ones are gray matter, because that's kind of a lot of detail for lab. You will likely need to know that for lecture, though. But as far as what you'll need to know is gray matter and white matter, specifically in the cerebellum, know that the arbor vitae is white matter, and that everything else is gray matter, so the surrounding area is gray matter. And that what we can see of the cerebrum is also gray matter. Okay, just those are the things I want you to worry about. Also, those things are included, the white matter and gray matter, for the sake of understanding what they do. So make sure you pay attention to those definitions and function areas too. Okay, so now we've come to the pivotal points where we need to decide whether